Robert Miller was a civil engineer. He built bridges that could withstand 50 tons of pressure. He calculated structures that seemed to defy gravity itself, but he couldn't teach his 12-year-old nephew how to add 7 plus 5. Maria, his housekeeper, could though. This story isn't really about math. It's about what money can't buy. It's about the things, the invaluable things, that even the best university degrees just can't teach you. So if you've ever felt completely and utterly defeated by something that seemed impossible to overcome, stick around, because what you're about to hear, well, it might just change the way you see the people who clean your house forever. Robert was 52 years old when his life took a complete U-turn. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't an illness. It was a phone call. At 3 in the morning, his younger sister, Caroline, had died in a car accident. She was only 38 years old, and she left behind a 10-year-old son named Tommy. Tommy's father had disappeared when he was just 2 years old. Caroline had raised him all on her own. Robert didn't have any children. He never wanted them. His life was his construction company, 200 employees, million-dollar contracts, meetings that stretched until 10 at night, weekends spent hunched over blueprints. But now he had an orphaned nephew, and he was Robert's only family. The day of the funeral, Robert told Tommy that he would come live with him. Tommy didn't say a word. He just nodded. His eyes were red, but he wasn't crying. Robert thought he was being strong. He didn't understand that the boy was in shock. The first few months were a disaster. Tommy didn't talk. He would come home from school, lock himself in his room, and wouldn't come out until dinner. Robert tried to talk to him, but he didn't know how. He would ask about school, and Tommy would respond with single words. Yes, no, okay, fine. Robert hired a child psychologist, $300 an hour. The psychologist said that Tommy needed time, that grief in children was different. She said that he needed patience, but there was something more. Tommy was bringing home terrible grades, especially in math. Robert couldn't understand it. He had been the best in his class at calculus. He had won math competitions in college. Numbers were his natural language. One day he looked through Tommy's notebook. What he saw left him completely paralyzed. The additions were wrong, the subtractions were wrong, the multiplications were a total mess. But the strangest thing was how he wrote the numbers. The 6 looked like a 9, the 3 looked like an 8. The numbers were inverted, jumbled, like they were dancing on the page. Robert called the school. He asked to speak with Tommy's teacher. She explained something that he had never heard of before. Tommy had dyslexia, but not just dyslexia. He had something called dyscalculia. It was like dyslexia, but with numbers. The numbers literally moved around in his head. What was obvious to Robert was an impossible labyrinth for Tommy. The teacher said that they had tried everything: extra classes, special exercises, support tutors. Nothing worked. Robert refused to accept that. He was an engineer. He had solved problems that others said were impossible. If the teachers at the school couldn't do it, he would find someone who could. He hired the first tutor. His name was Mr. Henderson. He had 30 years of experience teaching math. He charged $80 an hour. He came 3 times a week. After a month, Mr. Henderson quit. He said that Tommy was a special case, that he needed a specialist in dyscalculia, that he didn't have the tools to help him. Robert hired the second tutor, a specialist in learning disorders, a doctor in education, $120 an hour. She used scientific methods. She had published articles. After 2 months, the specialist quit. She said that Tommy's case was severe, that he had made a little progress, but not enough, that maybe he should just accept his limitations. Robert refused to accept that either. He hired the third tutor, then the fourth. In total, He spent $15,000 in 1 year, 4 tutors, hundreds of hours, dozens of different methods. The result was zero. Tommy still couldn't add. He still couldn't subtract. The numbers were still dancing in his head, but the worst part wasn't the grades. The worst part was what was happening to Tommy. The boy who had arrived in silence was now even worse. Not only did he not talk, now he cried. He got frustrated. He tore up his notebooks. He said that he was stupid, that he would never be able to do it. One day, Robert heard Tommy say something that broke his heart. Tommy was in his room, talking to himself. Robert went to the door and listened. "My mom was an architect. She made beautiful buildings. I wanted to make buildings too, but if I can't even do math, I'll never be able to. I'm a failure. Mom would be so disappointed." Robert stood frozen in the hallway. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to say, so he did nothing. He just went to his office and worked until midnight. That was the first time that Robert cried for Tommy, but he did it alone, in his office, where no one could see him. Another month went by. The situation didn't get better. Robert was desperate. That's when he decided to do it himself. He was an engineer, the best of his generation. If no one could teach his nephew, he would. He bought books on dyslexia. He read articles on dyscalculia. He studied teaching methods. He prepared a personalized study plan. The first day he sat down with Tommy at the dining room table. He had everything prepared: new notebooks, colored pencils, a whiteboard. "Okay, Tommy," Robert said. "We're going to start from scratch. Basic addition. 2 plus 3, it's easy. You just have to count." Tommy looked at the numbers. His eyes darted back and forth. He started to sweat. "I can't," Tommy said. "The numbers are moving." Robert took a deep breath. "Patience," he told himself. "This is going to take time." "Look," Robert said, 2 plus 3. Think of it like 2 apples plus 3 apples. How many apples do you have?" Tommy closed his eyes. He thought. He opened his eyes. 4, he said. Robert felt a pang of frustration. "No, it's 5. Let's try again." They tried again, and again, and again. After 2 hours, Tommy was crying. Robert was yelling. "How can you not understand something so simple?" Robert shouted. 2 plus 3. It's basic. A 5-year-old can do it. Tommy got up from the chair. He threw the notebook on the floor. He ran to his room and slammed the door. Robert stood alone in the dining room, staring at the notebook on the floor, feeling the worst shame of his life. He, who built bridges, couldn't build a bridge with his own nephew. That night, Robert didn't sleep. He stayed in his office, thinking. Maybe the specialist was right. Maybe he had to accept Tommy's limitations. Maybe some problems just didn't have a solution. The next day, Tommy didn't come down for breakfast. Robert went up to his room. He found him lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. "Tommy," Robert said, "I'm sorry." "Don't yell," Robert pleaded. Tommy didn't respond. Robert sat on the edge of the bed. He looked around. The room was covered in drawings. Drawings of buildings, towers, bridges, houses, all perfectly proportioned. Robert picked up one of the drawings. It was a skyscraper with asymmetrical balconies. Each balcony had different yet harmonious proportions. The shading was perfect, the perspective flawless. "Did you do this?" Robert asked. Tommy nodded. Robert examined more drawings. They were all incredible. Tommy had a natural talent for design. He could see proportions, angles, perspectives, everything he needed to be an architect, everything except the numbers. Robert put the drawing aside. He went downstairs to have breakfast alone. He didn't know what to do. It was that week that Maria came into his life. Robert had fired the previous housekeeper for stealing. He needed someone new. The agency sent him a woman of 47 named Maria Morales. Maria wasn't like the other housekeepers he'd had. She was quiet, hard-working, but there was something more, something in her eyes, a kind of silent wisdom that Robert couldn't quite explain. During the interview, Robert asked the usual questions: experience, references, schedule. Maria answered everything correctly, but there was one question Maria asked that Robert would never forget. "Is there a child in the house?" Maria asked. "Yes," said Robert. "My nephew, Tommy, he's 12 years old." Maria nodded. Her eyes gleamed for a second. "Children are the most important thing," she said. "You have to take good care of them." Robert didn't pay much attention to that comment. He just wanted someone who cleaned well and didn't steal. Maria started working the following Monday. The first few days were normal. Maria arrived at 7 a.m., cleaned, cooked, left at 5 p.m. She didn't talk much. She did her job in silence, but Robert noticed something strange. Maria spent a lot of time near Tommy's room. Sometimes he saw her standing in the hallway, looking at the closed door, as if she were thinking about something. One day, Robert asked her, "Is there something wrong with my nephew's room?" he asked. Maria shook her head. "No, sir. I'm just making sure everything is clean." Robert didn't think much more about it. He had too much on his mind: contract, meetings, and the seemingly unyielding problem with Tommy. 2 months passed, 3 months, 4 months. Robert was still working until 10 p.m. Still didn't know how to connect with Tommy. Still felt like a failure as a substitute guardian, but something was changing. Something Robert didn't notice because he was never home. Tommy had stopped crying in his room. Tommy had stopped tearing up his notebooks. Tommy had started to smile, but Robert didn't know it because he arrived when Tommy was already asleep and left before Tommy woke up. One day, Tommy's teacher called Robert. "Mr. Miller," the teacher said, "I wanted to talk to you about Tommy." Robert felt a knot in his stomach. What did he do now, he thought. "Is there a problem?" Robert asked. The teacher paused. "No," she said. "On the contrary, Tommy has improved. A lot. I don't know what happened, but something is working. His last math test had 6 correct answers out of 10. It's the best score he's had in 2 years. Robert didn't understand. "What?" he said. "But I haven't done anything different." "Well," said the teacher, "someone is doing something because Tommy is changing." That night, Robert came home earlier than usual. It was 8 p.m. He normally arrived at 10 p.m. The house was silent. Maria should have left 3 hours ago. Robert went upstairs towards his room, but before he got there, he saw something. There was light coming from under Tommy's door. Robert approached. He heard voices. One voice was Tommy's. The other was a woman's. It wasn't the voice of the child psychologist. It wasn't the voice of any tutor. It was Maria's voice. Robert froze in the hallway. His heart started to beat faster. What was his housekeeper doing in his nephew's room at 8 p.m.? He put his hand on the doorknob. He turned it slowly. He opened the door without making a sound, and what he saw changed his life forever. But before I tell you what Robert saw, you need to understand something. You need to know who Maria Morales really was, because she wasn't just a housekeeper. She had a secret that no one in that house knew. Maria was born in a small town in Oaxaca, Mexico, a place where there was no pavement, no consistent electricity, and definitely no schools with resources. When Maria was 18 years old, something extraordinary happened. The Mexican government started a program to bring education to rural communities. They needed volunteers, people willing to go to places where no one else wanted to go. Maria raised her hand. They sent her to an indigenous community in the mountains. 40 children, ages 5 to 15. A single classroom, no books, no blackboards, nothing. Maria didn't have a teaching degree. She had only finished high school. But she had something that books don't teach. She had creativity. She had patience. And she had a deep love for children. On the first day, she looked at the 40 children. Many had never seen a book. Some didn't even speak Spanish. They only spoke their indigenous language. What was she going to do? She had no resources, no training. She only had her hands and her brain. Then she did something that changed everything. She went outside. She collected stones, beans, leaves, twigs, everything she could find. She returned to the classroom. She put the objects on the floor. "This is a number," she said, "but not on paper. In real life." The children looked at her confused. Maria put 5 stones in a row. "How many stones are there?" she asked in Spanish. One child translated into Zapotec. The children counted, one by one, touching each stone. "5, said a child. Maria smiled. "Now," she said, "if I take away 2 stones, how many are left?" She did it. The children counted the remaining stones. 3, they said. Maria had discovered something. Children who couldn't understand abstract numbers on paper could understand them when they touched them. For 20 years, Maria taught in that community, without a real salary, just a small stipend from the government that barely covered food. But the results were incredible. Children who had been declared unable to learn managed to finish elementary school. Some even went to high school. 2 of them went to college. Maria's method wasn't in any book. It had no scientific name, but it worked. She called it the method of the hands. Everything the children couldn't understand with their eyes, they understood with their hands. But 5 years ago, everything changed. The government slashed the rural education program. Maria's school closed. The children were sent to other schools, far away from their community. Maria was left jobless, penniless, purposeless. At 42, she had to leave her hometown. She traveled to Mexico City. The only skill the city recognized was cleaning houses. So, that's what she did. For 5 years, Maria cleaned the homes of wealthy families. But she never stopped being a teacher at heart. Every time she saw a child struggling with their homework, something inside her stirred. When she arrived at Robert Miller's house, she immediately knew something was wrong. It wasn't what she saw, it was what she heard. On her first day of work, while cleaning the second-floor hallway, she heard Tommy crying in his room. It wasn't a normal cry. It was a cry of deep frustration. The same cry she had heard hundreds of times in her rural school. Maria approached the door. She listened. Tommy was talking to himself. "I'm stupid. I can't do it. The numbers are moving. No one understands me. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm a failure." Maria felt her heart break. That boy wasn't stupid. That boy had a different way of learning, and no one was helping him in the right way. During the first few weeks, Maria only observed. Every time she cleaned Tommy's room, she looked at his notebooks. She saw the tests, covered in red marks. She saw the drawings in the margins, and then she saw it. One day, she found a notebook hidden under Tommy's bed. It was different from the school notebooks. It was filled with drawings of buildings. Each building had windows, doors, balconies, and next to each drawing, there were small marks. They weren't written numbers. They were dots, groups of dots. Maria froze. Tommy was counting, in his own way, without written numbers, with dots, with his own system. That boy didn't have an intelligence problem. He had a brain that worked differently, and no one had noticed. That night, Maria couldn't sleep. She was in her small rented room, thinking about Tommy, thinking about all the children she had taught in Oaxaca, children the system had abandoned, children who had been called stupid, incapable, limited, and she had been able to help them. But Tommy wasn't her student. He was her boss's nephew. She was just the housekeeper. She had no right to interfere. A week passed, 2 weeks, a month, every day. Maria heard Tommy struggling with his homework. Every day, she saw the notebooks with red marks. Every day, she felt like she could help, but she didn't have permission. Until one day, something shifted. It was 4 p.m. Maria was finishing cleaning the kitchen. She heard a noise upstairs, a notebook hitting the floor. Then, crying, she went upstairs. Tommy's bedroom door was open. The boy was sitting on the floor, surrounded by torn papers, sobbing. Maria approached him. Tommy looked up. His eyes were red. "I can't do it," Tommy said. "No matter how hard I try, I can't. The numbers make no sense." Maria sat on the floor next to him. She didn't say anything for a moment. She just looked at him. "Can I try something?" she asked finally. Tommy looked at her, confused. "You're the cleaning lady," he said. "Yes," Maria said, "but I used to be something else." Maria reached into her apron pocket. She took out a handful of beans. She always carried them, a habit of 20 years. "Look," she said. "Forget about the numbers for a moment. Just look at the beans." She placed 3 beans on the floor. "How many are there?" she asked. Tommy looked at them. He counted them, touching them. 3, he said. "Good. Now I'm going to put 2 more." She placed 2 beans next to the others. "How many are there in total?" Tommy counted them, one by one, touching each one. 5, he said. Maria smiled. "You just added 3 plus 2. Tommy looked at her, surprised. "But I didn't write anything," he said. "You don't need to write," Maria said. "Numbers don't just live on paper. They live in things you can touch." That was the beginning. During the following weeks, Maria started staying after her work hours. She told Robert that she needed to finish ironing, that there was a pile of clothes, that she needed more time. Robert didn't suspect a thing. He arrived at 10 p.m. By then, Maria was already gone. But between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m., something magical was happening in Tommy's room. Maria brought a cloth bag that she had sewn herself. It had separate compartments. In one, there were beans. In another, there were small stones. In another, there were buttons of different colors. "The beans are the ones," she explained. "The stones are the tens. The buttons are the hundreds." Tommy looked at her, fascinated. "Let's add 23 plus 14, Maria said, "but not with numbers, with objects." She placed 2 stones and 3 beans to represent 23. Then she placed 1 stone and 4 beans to represent 14. "Now, and count all the beans," she said. Tommy counted them, 7 beans. "And the stones, 3 stones." "So, what's 23 plus 14, Tommy thought. He looked at the stones. He looked at the beans. 37, he said. Maria clapped. For the first time in his life, Tommy had added 2-digit numbers correctly. The sessions continued, every day, 2 hours, without fail. Maria didn't use books. She didn't use chalkboards. She only used objects that Tommy could touch. For fractions, she cut a tortilla into equal pieces. For percentages, she used 100 buttons and divided them into groups. For multiplications, she built rectangles with beans. Everything Tommy couldn't see in abstract numbers, he could see and touch with real objects. But there was something more. Maria connected math with Tommy's dream. "You want to be an architect, right?" she asked one day. Tommy nodded. "Architects use math all the time, but not like they teach you in school. They use it to build real things." Maria drew a simple building on a piece of paper. "If this building has 4 floors, and each floor has 6 windows, how many windows does the building have in total?" Tommy looked at the drawing. His eyes shined. This made sense. This was connected to something he loved. He took the beans. He made 4 groups of 6. He counted them. 24 windows, he said. "Exactly," Maria said. "You just multiplied 4 by 6, and you didn't even write numbers." The weeks turned into months. Maria kept a notebook where she documented Tommy's progress. She titled it Tommy's Progress. Every day she wrote what they had practiced and how he had responded. Day 1, simple additions with beans. Tommy confused but curious. Day 15, 2-digit additions. Tommy starts to understand the system. Day 30, subtractions. Tommy gets frustrated at first, but then he gets it. Day 45, basic multiplication using groups of beans. Tommy smiles for the first time. Day 60, fractions with tortillas. Tommy says math is like cooking. Day 90, percentages with buttons. Tommy solves problems all by himself. Day 127, Tommy solved a problem from his homework all by himself. No beans, No stones. The numbers are finally starting to settle in his head. 127 days. That's what it took. 127 days of patience. 127 days of beans, stones, and buttons. 127 days of selfless love. What 4 tutors with advanced degrees couldn't do in a year with $15,000, a former rural teacher did in 127 days with beans. But Robert knew none of this. He was still coming home at 10 p.m., still leaving at 6 a.m., still failing to connect with his nephew until that night, the night he came home early, the night he saw the light under the door, the night he opened the door without making a sound. And what he saw left him speechless. Maria was sitting on the floor of Tommy's room. Her blue uniform stood out against the beige carpet. Next to her was an open cloth bag. Beans, stones, and buttons were scattered on the floor, forming organized groups. Tommy was sitting across from her, but it wasn't the Tommy that Robert knew. This Tommy was smiling. This Tommy was focused. This Tommy was solving a math problem. There was a small whiteboard between them. Maria had drawn a building. The building had several floors with windows. "Okay," Maria said. "If the building has 5 floors and each floor has 8 windows, how many windows are there in total?" Tommy looked at the drawing. Then he looked at the beans. He made 5 groups. He put 8 beans in each group. He counted them, one by one. 40 windows, Tommy said. Maria clapped softly. "Very good. Now, if the architect wants to add balconies to half the windows, how many balconies would that be?" Tommy thought. He looked at the 40 beans. He divided them into 2 equal groups. 20 balconies, he said. "Perfect. You just divided 40 by 2, without writing a single number." Tommy smiled. A smile that Robert hadn't seen in 2 years. Robert stood frozen in the doorway. Tears started to fall down his face. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. His nephew was learning math. His nephew was smiling. His nephew was being taught by the woman who cleaned his house. Maria looked up. She saw Robert in the doorway. Her face changed immediately. She turned pale. She jumped to her feet. "Mr. Miller," Maria said, "I can explain. Please, don't fire me. I just wanted to help. The boy was suffering, and I knew I could help. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Maria started gathering the beans quickly. Her hands were shaking. She was scared. She had crossed a line. She was the housekeeper. She had no right to teach her boss's nephew anything. Robert didn't say anything. He stood in the doorway, watching the scene, watching the beans, watching the whiteboard with the drawing of the building, watching Maria's notebook with the title Tommy's Progress. Tommy also stood up. He looked at his uncle with fear. "Uncle Robert, please," Tommy said. "Don't fire her. She's helping me. For the first time, the numbers make sense. Please." Robert looked at Tommy. He looked into his eyes. There was something different in them. There was hope. There was confidence. There was life. Robert walked into the center of the room. He knelt down on the floor. He looked at the scattered beans. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked. His voice was low, quiet. Maria swallowed hard. "4 months, sir. Since I arrived. I started when I heard him crying in his room." Robert nodded. He picked up one of the beans. He looked at it. "4 tutors," he said. "I spent $15,000. 4 professionals with university degrees. And none of them could teach my nephew how to add." Maria lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm not a professional. I'm just—" Robert raised his hand. "Let me finish," he said. Maria fell silent. Robert looked at Tommy. "What's 7 plus 5? He asked. Tommy thought about it. He didn't use the beans. He just thought. 12, he said. Robert felt a lump in his throat. That same question had made Tommy cry 2 months ago, and now he answered it without hesitation. "And 23 minus 9? Robert asked. Tommy thought again. 14, he said. Robert closed his eyes. Tears streamed down his cheeks. 4 professional tutors couldn't do it, he said. An undoubtedly with 2 engineering degrees couldn't do it. But you, with beans and stones, you did. Maria didn't say anything. She just looked at him. Robert opened his eyes. He looked at Maria directly. "Who are you, really?" he asked. Maria sighed. "I was a teacher, sir, 20 years, in a rural community in Oklahoma. I taught children that the system had forgotten. Native American children, poor children, children who had never seen a book." Robert listened in silence. "I didn't have resources," Maria continued. "I only had objects. Stones, beans, leaves, sticks, everything I could touch. So I invented a method. Children who couldn't understand numbers on paper understood them when they touched them." "Why didn't you tell me?" Robert asked. Maria lowered her gaze again. "Because you didn't ask, sir. To you, I was just the woman who cleaned your house. And that's okay. It's my job now. But when I heard Tommy cry, when I saw his pain, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. I'm sorry if I overstepped." Robert was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that Maria would never forget. He sat down on the floor, next to the beans, next to the stones, next to the buttons. "Teach me," he said. Maria looked at him, confused. "Sir?" she asked. Robert looked her in the eyes. "I have 2 engineering degrees. I know how to calculate structures that can withstand 50 tons. But I don't know how to teach my nephew." "You do? Teach me." Maria didn't know what to say. In 20 years of teaching, no one had ever asked her that. No one had ever shown her that humility. "Okay," she said finally. "But you're going to have to sit on the floor." Robert laughed. For the first time in a long time, he laughed for real. "I'm already sitting," he said. That night, something changed in the Miller household. Robert stayed until 11 p.m., sitting on the floor of Tommy's room, learning Maria's method, seeing how the beans represented units, how the stones represented tens, how the buttons represented hundreds. Tommy explained it to his uncle for the first time. Tommy was the teacher, and Robert was the student. "Look, Uncle Robert," Tommy said, "if you want to add 34 plus 27, first you put down 3 stones and 4 beans. Then you put down 2 pebbles and 7 beans. Then you count." Robert counted 5 pebbles, 11 beans. "But 11 beans are more than 10, Robert pointed out. Tommy grinned. "Then you trade 10 beans for 1 pebble, he explained. "Now you have 6 pebbles and 1 bean. That's 61. Robert stared at his nephew in amazement. This kid, who'd been labeled incapable by 4 professional tutors, was teaching him math. A civil engineer with 2 degrees. In that moment, Robert understood something profound. The problem had never been Tommy. The problem had been the way he was being taught. The tutors used abstract methods, numbers on paper, symbols without meaning. But Tommy's brain didn't work that way. Tommy's brain needed to touch, to understand, and Maria had seen it. From day one, she'd seen it in Tommy's drawings. She'd seen it in the dots he used to count. She'd seen it because she'd spent 20 years seeing different brains. Robert looked at Maria. "How many children did you teach back in Oaxaca?" he asked. Maria thought for a moment. "More than 400, she said, "in 20 years. Many had problems like Tommy, some worse, but they all learned something." 400 children, Robert repeated. "Without resources, without books, without technology, just beans and patience." Maria nodded. "Love teaches better than degrees, sir," she said softly. Robert was struck by that phrase. Love teaches better than degrees. That phrase contained a truth he'd ignored his whole life. He'd believed that money could solve everything, that if he paid enough, he'd find the solution, but he'd paid $15,000 and nothing had worked. What had worked was free. It was a woman sitting on the floor, with beans in her pocket, giving her time to a child that no one else wanted to teach. From that night on, everything changed. Robert started coming home earlier, at 6 in the evening, sometimes at 5. He sat with Tommy and Maria. He learned the method. He practiced with the beans. At first, he felt ridiculous. A 52-year-old engineer sitting on the floor, counting beans like an elementary school kid. But then, he understood. It wasn't ridiculous. It was humility. It was learning a new way to see the world. Tommy started to improve more and more. A month after Robert discovered the truth, Tommy brought home a test. Math, grade 8 out of 10. The teacher had written in the margin, "Incredible progress." What happened? Robert looked at the test. He looked at the grade. He looked at the teacher's handwriting. Then he looked at Maria, who was washing dishes in the kitchen. He went over to her. He showed her the test. Maria looked at the grade. She smiled. "He did it," she said. "No," said Robert, "you did it." Maria shook her head. "No, sir. Tommy did it. I just showed him a different path. He walked the path himself." Robert put the test away. He put it in a special folder. It was the first physical evidence that his nephew wasn't a failure. It was proof that Maria had performed a miracle. But Robert knew it wasn't a miracle. It was science. It was pedagogy. It was a method that Maria had developed over 20 years. A method that the educational system had ignored because it came from a woman without a degree, from a poor town, from a forgotten community. That night, Robert made a decision. Maria couldn't continue to be just the housekeeper. The next day, Robert called Maria to his office in the house. Maria entered nervous. She thought he was going to fire her, that he'd reconsidered, that it had all been a dream. "Please, sit down," Robert said. Maria sat down. Robert took out a paper. It was a contract. "I want to make you a proposal," Robert said. "You continue cleaning the house, but you will also be Tommy's official tutor. I will pay you for both things. Salary tripled." Maria's eyes widened. "Tripled?" she asked. Robert nodded. $4,000 a month for cleaning, plus $8,000 a month as a tutor. Total, $12,000 a month. With health insurance, with paid vacation, with a formal contract. Maria couldn't believe it. She earned $1,000 a month, and now they were offering her $12,000. "But there's something else," Robert continued. Maria looked at him. "I want you to document your method. Everything, every step, every technique, every object you use. I want to turn it into a formal program." "Why?" Maria asked. Robert sighed. "Because there are thousands of children like Tommy. Children that the system has abandoned. Children who are called stupid because their brains work differently. And you have the solution. But that solution is only in your head. I want to get it out. I want other teachers to learn it. I want it to reach the schools." Maria felt tears welling up in her eyes. For 20 years, she'd taught in silence, in a forgotten town, without recognition, without money, without anyone valuing her work. And now, a millionaire was telling her that her method was worth something, that it could help thousands of children. "Okay," said Maria, "I'll do it." Robert extended his hand. Maria took it. "Welcome to the family," Robert said. The following months were transformative. Tommy continued to improve. His next test was a 9 out of 10. Then a perfect 10. The teacher couldn't believe it. She requested a meeting with Robert. "What's happening?" the teacher asked. "Tommy was my most problematic student, and now he's one of the best. What did you do?" Robert smiled. "We found someone who speaks his language," he said. But the biggest transformation wasn't in the numbers. It was in the relationship between Robert and Tommy. For the first time in 2 years, they ate dinner together every day. For the first time, they talked. For the first time, Robert listened to Tommy's dreams, about the buildings he wanted to build, about the mother he had lost. One day, Tommy showed him a new drawing. It was a skyscraper, but not just any skyscraper. It was a building shaped like wings, like a bird about to fly. "It's called the Caroline Tower," Tommy said, "for my mom. Someday I'm going to build it." Robert looked at the drawing. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "Your mom would be very proud," he said. Tommy looked at him. You think I'm an architect, Uncle? Robert nodded. I think you're the best architect I've ever met, and you haven't even finished elementary school yet. Tommy smiled. That smile that had been lost for 2 years. That smile that Maria had rescued with beans and patience. 6 months passed since the first passing grade. Robert had kept his promise. He had hired an educational psychologist to document Maria's method. They called it the hands-on method. 47 pages of instructions, illustrations, and exercises. But Robert wanted more. One day, he gathered his management team at the construction company. 15 executives, all with university degrees. They were all earning 6-figure salaries. I have a new project, Robert said, but it's not construction-related. The executives looked at him, confused. Robert placed the hands-on method document on the table. This, he said, is a pedagogical method developed by my housekeeper, Maria. She taught in rural communities for 20 years, and she achieved something that 4 professional tutors couldn't, teaching my nephew, Tommy, who has dyslexia, how to do math. The executives glanced at the document. I want to create a foundation, Robert continued. It will be called the Maria Miller Foundation. Its objective will be to train housekeepers to become support tutors for children with learning disabilities. An executive raised his hand. With all due respect, Robert, he said, we are a construction company. Why get into education? Robert looked at him. Because I have 200 employees, and many of them have children, and many of those children struggle in school, and none of them have access to what Tommy had. A patient person who speaks their language. The executive fell silent. Robert continued, I'm going to invest $5 million of my own money. We'll train 50 housekeepers in the first year. We'll teach them the hands-on method, and then we'll connect them with families that need help. Why housekeepers? Another executive asked. Robert smiled. Because they're already in the homes. They already know the children. They already spend time with them. They just need the tools. The program launched 3 months later. The first class had 50 women, all housekeepers, all working in middle and upper class family homes. None had a college degree. Maria was the lead instructor. Look, Maria said in the first class, you already know the most important things. You know how to listen. You know how to observe. You know how to be patient. I'm just going to show you a way to use those skills to help children. The women looked at her. Some had tears in their eyes. No one had ever told them that their skills were valuable. For 8 weeks, Maria taught them the method. Beans, stones, buttons, how to represent numbers, how to explain fractions with pie slices, how to connect math to real life. At the end of the training, the 50 women received a certificate, Tactile Math Support Tutors, the first certificate of their lives for many of them. The results were immediate. In the first year, the 50 tutors worked with 200 children, children with dyslexia, children with dyscalculia, children who had been abandoned by the education system. Of those 200 children, 180 improved their grades. 150 went from failing to passing. 47 made the honor roll at their schools. The parents couldn't believe it. One mother called Robert personally. Mr. Miller, she said, my son has been failing math for 3 years. 3 years. We've spent thousands of dollars on tutors. Nothing worked. And now, with Ms. Maria, who is our housekeeper, my son got an A on the test. An A. How is that possible? Robert smiled. It's possible because someone finally spoke your son's language. The news spread. A local reporter heard about the program. She wrote a story. The story went viral. Housekeepers become teachers. The program that's transforming education in America. The calls started flooding in. Families from all over the country. Business owners who wanted to replicate the model. State governments that wanted to implement it. But the most important call came from the Department of Education. We want to meet with you, the official said. What you're doing is revolutionary. We want to see if we can implement it nationwide. Robert didn't go to the meeting alone. He took Maria with him. When they entered the government boardroom, there were 12 officials, all with master's degrees and PhDs, all staring at the 47-year-old woman in a housekeeper's uniform. Maria sat down. She put her canvas bag on the table. She took out the beans, the stones, the buttons. "This is what we use," she said. "We don't need computers. We don't need expensive textbooks. We just need objects that children can touch." The officials looked at her with skepticism at first, but after an hour of demonstration, the skepticism turned into admiration. "This works," the lead official said. "It's simple, it's inexpensive, and it works." 2 years later, the hands-on method was implemented in 100 public schools as a pilot program. They trained 500 teachers. 2,000 children with learning disabilities received support. The results were overwhelming. The failure rate in math dropped 40% in the pilot schools. But for Maria, the most important thing wasn't the numbers. It was the faces of the children, the smiles, the confidence in their eyes, that same transformation she had seen in Tommy. And speaking of Tommy, 3 years after that night when Robert opened the door, Tommy was 15 years old. He had finished middle school with honors. His average in math was a 3.8 GPA. He had won a youth architectural design competition. On the day of the awards ceremony, Robert and Maria were sitting in the front row. Tommy walked onto the stage. He received the award. Then he took the microphone. "I want to thank 2 people," he said. "My uncle Robert, who adopted me when I lost my mom, and Maria Miller, who taught me that numbers don't have to dance in your head. They can walk with you if someone shows you the way." The auditorium applauded. Maria was crying. Robert took her hand. "Thank you," Robert whispered. Maria looked at him. "For what?" she asked. "For everything," Robert said. "For not giving up. For believing in him when no one else did. For doing what $15,000 couldn't do." Maria smiled. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "I just used beans." Robert laughed. "No," he said. "You used love. The beans were just the excuse." Today, 5 years after all of this, the hands-on method is used in 12 countries around the world. 50,000 children have been helped. 3,000 tutors have been trained. The method has scientific articles that validate its effectiveness. Maria no longer cleans houses. She is the pedagogical director of the Maria Miller Foundation. She has a salary of $80,000 a year. She has health insurance. She has an office with her name on the door. But every morning before she starts working, she takes out her canvas bag. She looks at the beans. She looks at the stones. She looks at the buttons. And she remembers. She remembers the 400 children in underserved communities. She remembers Tommy crying in his room. She remembers the night Robert opened the door. She remembers that it all started with a single question. "Can I try something?" Tommy is 17 years old now. He's in his senior year of high school, already accepted to UCLA, majoring in architecture. His thesis project? To design a rural school, a school where children learn math by touching objects. A school named after his mother, the Caroline Miller School. Robert cut his time at the construction company in half. He spends his afternoons at the foundation. Sometimes he sits with the kids, teaches them with lima beans. He laughs when they make mistakes. He applauds when they get it right. One day, a reporter asked him, "Mr. Miller, you're a successful businessman. You've built bridges, buildings, hospitals. What do you consider your greatest achievement?" Robert thought for a moment. "My greatest achievement," he said, "was sitting on the floor counting lima beans. Because that day, I learned something my 2 engineering degrees never taught me, that miracles don't cost $15,000. They cost patience. They cost time. They cost sitting on the floor with someone who needs help." The reporter jotted down the answer. "And what would you say to other business leaders?" he asked. Robert looked out the window. He thought of Maria, of Tommy, of the 50,000 children who had been helped. I'd tell them to look at the people who clean their homes, he said. Ask them where they come from, listen to their stories. Because behind every housekeeper's uniform, there could be a teacher, a healer, an angel. Then the reporter ended the interview, but Robert had something more to say. And I'd tell them something else, he added. I'd tell them that success isn't how much money you make, it's how many lives you change. And sometimes, changing a life doesn't require millions of dollars. It just requires lima beans, pebbles, buttons, and love. And that night, Robert had dinner with Tommy and Maria. It was dinner number 1825. 5 years of dinners together, 5 years of lima beans, 5 years of family. Tommy raised his glass. To the numbers that no longer dance, he said. Maria raised hers. To the children no one wants to teach, she said. Robert raised his. To miracles that cost $0 and 100% love, he said. They clinked glasses. And in that moment, Robert knew something with certainty. His sister Caroline would be proud, not just of Tommy. She'd be proud of what they had built together. A family made of lima beans, pebbles, and buttons. A family where love taught better than degrees, because in the end, that's the lesson of this story. Degrees don't teach. Patience does. Money doesn't connect. Time does. Numbers don't matter. People do. And sometimes, the most important teacher in your life doesn't have a diploma. They have a blue housekeeper's uniform and a cloth bag full of lima beans. Because there are teachers who never set foot in a university. Some wear yellow cleaning gloves. And if you were Robert, if you came home early and saw your housekeeper teaching your nephew math, what would you do? I hope you'd sit on the floor. I hope you'd say, "Teach me." And because that's the first step toward the miracle. And the miracle doesn't cost $15,000. The miracle costs lima beans, pebbles, buttons, and all the love you can give. Tommy once said something Robert would never forget. It was on his first day of college. Maria had gone to see him off. Tommy hugged her. "The numbers don't dance anymore, Uncle," he said. "Now they walk with me. And every time I solve an equation, I think of lima beans." Maria laughed. "Don't forget," she said, "when you build your first building, put up a plaque." Tommy looked at her. "What will the plaque say?" he asked. Maria smiled. "It'll say, 'Built with lima beans.'" And that's the story of how a housekeeper did what an engineer with 2 degrees and $15,000 couldn't do. It's not a story about math. It's a story about seeing the invisible, about listening to those whom no one listens to, about sitting on the floor when everyone else is standing, and about never, ever underestimating the person who cleans your house. Because she might be the teacher your child needs. She might be the miracle you're looking for. She might be Maria. There's something else I want to tell you before we finish. 3 months after Tommy entered college, there was a special event. The Esperanza Foundation was celebrating its 5th anniversary. They had invited 300 people, business leaders, politicians, journalists, teachers, and the 500 tutors who had been trained. But the guest of honor was a young boy. His name was Michael. He was 10 years old. He was born with Turner syndrome and had severe learning difficulties. His mother was a housekeeper. She worked in the home of a wealthy family. 2 years ago, Michael's mother had taken the Esperanza Foundation course. She had learned the hands-on method, and she had started teaching her own son. Michael had gone from failing every subject to being the second best in his class. That night, Michael went up on stage. He had a paper in his hand. He had written it himself. "My mom cleans houses," Michael read. "She works from 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening. But every night, when she gets home, she sits with me, and she teaches me with lima beans." The auditorium was silent. "The doctors said that I would never be able to learn like the other kids," Michael continued. "They said that my brain was different, and they're right. My brain is different, but different doesn't mean worse. It means I need a different path." Tears started to fall on the faces of the people in the audience. "My mom showed me that path. with lima beans, pebbles, buttons, and all the love that fits in her hands. Michael looked at his mother, who was sitting in the front row. Her hands were covered in calluses from so many years of housework. "Mom," Michael said, "thank you for not giving up. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did. Thank you for teaching me that the numbers don't have to dance. They can walk with me." And Michael's mother was crying. Maria was crying. Robert was crying. Everyone was crying. Because that's the truth of this story. It's not just about Tommy and Maria. It's about thousands of children, thousands of mothers, thousands of housekeepers who have within them the power to change lives. They just need someone to give them the tools. They just need someone to believe in them. They just need someone to say to them, "You can do it." After the event, Robert approached Maria. They were alone in the hallway. The noise of the party could be heard in the distance. "You know something," Robert said. "When I hired you 5 years ago, I thought you'd just be another housekeeper. Another person who would clean my house and leave." Maria nodded. "I know," she said. Robert looked her in the eyes. "But it turns out you were so much more than that. You were exactly what my family needed, what Tommy needed, what I needed." Maria smiled. "I didn't do anything special, Mr. Miller. I just saw a child struggling and decided to help." Robert shook his head. "That is exactly what's special," he said. "Seeing the struggle and deciding to help. That's what most people don't do. They see the suffering and look the other way. You didn't. You sat on the floor. You took beans out of your pocket and you changed a life." Maria lowered her gaze. "You changed 2 lives," Robert said. "Tommy's and mine." They were silent for a moment. Then Robert took something from his pocket. It was a small velvet case. Maria looked at him, confused. Robert opened the case. Inside was a ring, but it wasn't a gold or diamond ring. It was a simple silver ring. And instead of a precious stone, it had 3 small spheres embedded in it. One was brown, like a bean. One was gray, like a stone. One was blue, like a button. "I had it made," Robert said, "so you never forget where you come from. So you never forget what you accomplished. So you never forget that sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't made of gold. They're made of beans." Maria took the ring. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," said Robert. "Thank you." And that night, under the lights of the event hall, a 52-year-old housekeeper put on a ring. That was worth more than any diamond. Because that ring represented everything she had achieved. 400 kids in Oaxaca, a boy named Tommy, 50,000 kids across Latin America, and a lesson that the world needed to hear, that love teaches better than degrees. That's the story I wanted to tell you today. I'm not telling it to make you cry, although you probably did cry. I'm telling it so that the next time you see the person who cleans your home, you look at them differently. I'm telling it so that the next time your child has problems in school, you don't only look for tutors with fancy diplomas. You look for people with patience. I'm telling it so that the next time you feel like a failure, you remember that miracles don't cost $15,000. They cost time. They cost presence. They cost sitting on the floor. And if you have a child whose numbers dance in their head, if you have a nephew the system has abandoned, if you know someone who's been called incapable, stupid, limited, I want you to remember something. Remember that Tommy Miller was called all of those things. And now he's studying architecture at the best university in Mexico. Remember that Tommy's brain didn't change. What changed was the way he was taught. Remember that the teacher who saved Tommy didn't have a degree. She had a blue uniform and a bag of beans. And if you are that child, if you are that person who feels like the numbers are dancing, that the letters are moving, that nothing makes sense, I want you to know something. You're not stupid. You're not incapable. You're not limited. You just need someone to speak your language. You just need someone to sit on the floor with you, You just need your own Maria, and maybe, just maybe, that Maria is already near you. Maybe it's the person who cleans your house. Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's your mother. Maybe it's yourself. Because we all have the power to be a Maria for someone. We just have to decide to use it. We just have to sit on the floor. We just have to take the beans out of our pocket and say, I can try something. That phrase changed Tommy's life. That phrase can change someone else's life. Maybe yours. Maybe someone you love. Because miracles don't happen in hospitals with expensive machines. Miracles happen in children's bedrooms, sitting on the floor, with beans and patience. And if this story moved you, if this story made you think, if this story reminded you that there are invisible people doing silent miracles, then share this story. Not for me, not for Tommy, not for Maria. Share it because there are thousands of Tommys out there. Thousands of kids who are crying in their rooms. Thousands of kids who think they are stupid. Thousands of kids who just need someone to show them another way. And maybe, just maybe, the person who sees this story will have the bag of beans that child needs. That's my hope. That's Maria's hope. And that's the story of how a housekeeper taught a millionaire engineer the most important lesson of his life. Numbers don't matter. People do. Degrees don't teach. Love does. And sometimes, the miracle you're looking for doesn't cost $15,000. It costs beans, stones, buttons, and all the love you can give.